Hey there everybody and welcome to Cinema Recap. Thank you for joining us today. So it looks like we'll be recapping the supernatural comedy film Bhootnath. Sorry for my pronunciation. Spoilers ahead. We start the film on a young couple who look to be arriving at a luxurious home for romantic holidays away together. The home is called Nath Villa, and although it's nighttime when they arrive, the place is clearly big and beautiful and romantic. Or at least the guy is hoping so. He's brought this woman here for a pretty obvious reason, and he's just hoping the house seals the deal. Unfortunately, the lights aren't working, and the girlfriend points out that this home is supposedly haunted. The boyfriend laughs this off, and even makes a couple of jokes about it. That's until the two of them see a literal ghost. This, of course, has them both fleeing the place in terror, while also setting the movie up perfectly for what's to come. Next up, we cut to a beautiful cruise ship pulling into port at Goa, India. On the cruise ship is what appear to be a loving family arriving to a new city, a new home to start life afresh. There's the father and mother, Adi and Anjali Sharma, and their son Banku. As the ship pulls in, the family joke and laugh with one another, all but confirming this to be a loving and happy family. Even better, there isn't a ghost in sight, but things get off to an odd start when Adi tries to hire a taxi to take him to their new home. The taxi driver is hesitant about driving to Nath Villa, specifically, even stating that no driver would do such a thing. That is until Adi waves some cash in front of his face. Now he's only too happy to take him. On the way though, he explains that the home they're about to go in is haunted. Everyone knows this. Obviously, Adi and Anjali don't believe a word of it. Why would they? Banku though, he doesn't like ghosts at all. Once they arrive at the house, their landlord meets them and tries to let them inside. Only the doors don't work. It's almost like something's keeping them out. But no matter. Banku decides to smash the window with a rock and break in. Easy peasy. Adi asks the landlord about this ghost, just in case he might be real. But the landlord assures him that there is no ghost, and those rumors just started because everyone else is jealous of how nice this home is. Honestly, sounds fair enough to me. And besides, as the landlord shows the house off, we see that it's really a nice place. Maybe it's worth staying here, even if there is a ghost on site. The next day, Anjali and Banku say goodbye to Adi as he gets ready to go to work. He's the captain of a cruise liner, and he's about to head out to sea for several weeks. Oh, and Anjali also promises that Banku will be on his best behavior. Somehow I feel like this is a promise made to be broken. It seems that Banku is a little bit of a troublemaker too. He's such a naughty boy in fact that when Anjali takes Banku to school that day to register, she even warns the principal of her son's troublesome reputation.
Mrs. Sharma, I expect you.
Not that the principal cares. All he really seems to care about is stealing the children's lunches every day. Seriously, he even confirms with Banku that he'll bring a healthy packed lunch each day so that he can steal it.
Good.
I mean, so that Banku will grow up big and strong. Yeah, that sounds better. From there, the principal takes Banku to class, where he's introduced to his classmates. It's here that we get our first whiff of Banku's troublemaking prowess, as he immediately makes enemies with another child, Jojo. They laugh at one another's names, and from that point on, we just know that they're gonna be enemies. Jojo doesn't seem to mind though. That day at lunch, he and his friends decide to show Banku who's the boss around here. They stand toe-to-toe in the playground, and then break into song and dance. It's a song that's lyrics tell us that kids are not to be messed with. It's a whole production really, one that takes up so much time that the two kids never end up fighting. They just sing, stare one another down, and then go on their way. Back at home, Anjali's trying to get the house in order, which means unpacking all the groceries she had to buy. Unfortunately, she learns soon that she isn't alone in this house. But don't worry, it's not a ghost, just a pesky vagrant called Anthony, who lives in the area. He tries to steal some food from Anjali, but rather than freaking out and running away as you might expect, she ends up chasing Anthony out of the house with a stick, screaming at him not to come back. At school again, and Banku is struggling to make friends. He's in the playground painting with a bunch of classmates when Jojo decides to play a prank on him. He stands up and flicks blue paint all over him. This just about sets off Banku. only for Jojo to reveal that the paint is invisible. Now, this might have been a good moment for the two enemies to bond and become friends. And for a moment, it does look like they just might do that. Jojo convinces Banku to play the same prank on their teacher, and Banku, being the prankster that he is, says yes. Unfortunately for him, the principal accidentally gets in the way of the paint spray. Even worse, that Jojo switched the paint on Banku, so this time it's not disappearing. All furious, the principal calls Banku's mother to the office to scold Banku. But unfortunately for him, his mother can only laugh. Oh yeah, she's almost like proud of Banku for what he did. Parenting 101 for you folks. Now back home after school, and all Banku can talk about is the ghost that apparently lives in their house. The kids have told him that there's one, but his mother spends the afternoon and night convincing Banku that ghosts don't exist.
Angels.
Rather, she tells him about angels, and uses Banku's deceased grandfather as an example. Angels, she claims, are the only supernatural spirit that Banku needs to worry about, and this is all the explanation that Banku needs. But that night, Banku wakes up from his sleep with a craving for ice cream. He wanders to the kitchen and fixes himself a bowl, unaware that the ghost is watching him. He starts making his way back to the bedroom, ice cream in hand, when a ghost appears. Banku drops the bowl and screams his head off. His mother comes rushing down, but wouldn't you know it, there's no ghost. Banku knows he saw something. She tells him he's just seeing things. Most likely he's been thinking about angels all night, and that's what it was. Banku concedes and heads back to bed. But that's when he realizes something. The bowl of ice cream that he dropped was empty, which means that the ghost must have stolen that ice cream right out of the bowl. Banku hurries back downstairs to see if his theory's correct. And again, the ghost appears. Only this time, Banku isn't that worried. In fact, he doesn't even believe in ghosts. Why would he? His mother told him that they weren't real. And if that's the case, this ghost must actually be an angel. He tells the ghost this, but the ghost refuses to believe it. He is a ghost. His name is Bhootnath. And not only is he a ghost, but he's a terribly scary ghost who wants Banku and his family out of that house. But the kid's not buying it. In fact, every attempt Bhootnath makes to scare this kid just has him doubled over in laughter. This, of course, sends Bootnath into an existential crisis, and he leaves the house for a moment to scare a random passerby, confirming that he is indeed a ghost. He hurries back inside to tell Banku this, only for Banku to be fast asleep. The next morning sees Banku in a mood. He tells his mother that he saw an angel, and rather than telling him that he's being a silly child, she decides to believe him. As such, he spends the entire day at school, telling his schoolmates the exact same thing, describing in detail what this angel looks like, almost bragging that he has his own personal angel to hang out with. As this is happening, Bootnath is still at home, trying to scare Banku's mother away. Unfortunately, she can't see or hear him, so he decides to do a more subtle approach. She spends the day cleaning, and when that vagrant pops back up again, she offers to pay him if he cleans for her. He eagerly says yes, and begins sweeping leaves from the front of the home. Only now Bootnath steps in, pushing the leaves back and then blowing them inside. Next, he starts to slap them around, knocking things over near him, and freaking the homeless vagrant out of his mind. But Anjali just thinks that it's Anthony breaking things on purpose and chases him from the house once again. That night, and Banku is just so excited to hang out with his new angel buddy. Bootnath doesn't want to be Banku's friend though. He wants him gone. He tells Banku that he's a ghost, and Banku should be scared of him. But the kid's smarter than he looks and tricks Bootnath into proving that he's a ghost. First, he tricks Bootnath into blowing the leaves back outside the house. Then he tricks him into hanging up some portraits, and then taking down some cobwebs. And soon he has this ghost literally unpacking and arranging the entire house with a little bit of ghost magic. Now, Banku's mom isn't too upset by this. In fact, the next morning, she seems to think that Anthony must have done the cleaning overnight. She even pays him. And as to Banku, we get a song montage that shows him and the ghost Bootnath becoming friends of sorts. Although really, it's just Bootnath trying to mess with Banku. But what begins as some fun pranks develops into a friendship. And it's pretty obvious that Bootnath, despite being a mean grump, actually enjoys playing around with Banku. That is until one of Bootnath's pranks goes horribly wrong. He decides to scare the kid, only to do a little too good a job of it. Banku falls backwards and then takes a tumble down the stairs, smashing his head on the ground. His mother comes running in, screaming over her son, and Bootnath can only watch on, terrified over what he just did and what might happen to Banku. He follows him to the hospital where he hears other patients comment on Banku and the ghost living in the house, seeming to think that Bootnath is responsible for this. Surprisingly, these accusations upset the ghost, who tries to explain that he didn't do this, but he's a ghost, so no one can hear him. Luckily, Banku wakes up a little while later and is perfectly fine, but in this moment, Bootnath seems to have a revelation. Banku tells Bootnath that he's like a grandfather to him, seeming to respect the ghost beyond anything Bootnath could have imagined, and Bootnath realizes that he's starting to love this young boy like a grandson. And what's more, the kid's helping him see that there's more to not living than scaring people for kicks. Really, they both needed one another. Now, we see a change in Bootnath after this. Rather than just messing around with the kid, he starts to treat him more like a friend. He worries over Banku as he recovers and even aids him in some ways, although this is really just more about messing with Banku's mother. For example, Banku asks his mom to make him a huge breakfast. She doesn't want to, but he begs and begs and begs. And in the end, Bootnath is the one who eats the whole thing. Because, well, I guess he was hungry and couldn't ask her himself. Bootnath even follows Banku to school where he finally gets revenge on the principal for stealing his lunches all this time. The principal looks at Banku's lunchbox and sees a sandwich inside. But then he looks again and this time, it's some cutlets, and then a sandwich, and then some cutlets. Principal had no clue what was going on, neither do the kids, but they laugh at him anyways. And things become even worse for the principal when he tries to speak to the class, only to spout some random gibberish. All thanks to Bootnath. This continues onto the assembly, which sees the principal embarrass himself even further in front of the entire school, as he's trying to address him but can't form a single comprehensible sentence. But Bootnath isn't going to help Banku with all his problems. Taking on the role of a father figure, Bootnath wants to help Banku succeed the right way. One day at school, Banku's struggling in track and field. So he's asking Bootnath to help win, but he refuses. Instead, he gives Banku a talking to, explaining that life isn't easy and that he needs to try and to never give up because if he does this, then he's bound to succeed. And sure enough, Banku does just that, putting his heart into the race like Bootnath told him to, and winning it without the assistance of the ghost. Unfortunately for Banku, this just annoys his fellow classmates who think that he's lying about this so-called angel he keeps bragging about. As a means to punish him, Jojo devises a plan to trap Banku at the bottom of a well. Only Jojo slips and falls himself, and is then abandoned by his not-so-good friends. In the end, it's up to Banku to help him. And he uses the powers of Bootnath to stretch his arm out and help Jojo climb up the side of the well. You would think that Jojo might be grateful for this help, but rather he instead tells everyone what happened, and the rumor soon gets back to the principal, who's forced to call in Banku's mother and give her a speaking to. Basically, he tells her to make her son stop believing he has an angel friend or he's going to be expelled. And we see back home Banku's mother tries to tell Banku that angels and ghosts don't exist. Well, Banku refuses to listen, and that results in her slapping him in the face. Another montage song now. This one's all about Banku being upset with his mom while Bootnath tries to comfort him and tell him everything's gonna be alright. Again, it is Bootnath who Banku goes to for support, and not his abusive mother. A few days later, and Banku's performing in a play that he wrote. His mother is there to watch, of course, and so is Bootnath. This play is a retelling of Banku's first meeting with Bootnath. And the woman sitting next to Anjali points out that he's wearing exactly what Bootnath was known to wear. Anjali's confused by this, even more so when she sees Banku waving to a random empty space in the aisle, one we know where Bootnath is standing. Is it possible? Is her son maybe telling the truth? Before Anjali can deal with this most disturbing possibility, she's forced to confront the fact that she and her family might be getting kicked out of their home by its owner. He arrives at the house one day, there to inform Anjali that the house is being sold, so that it can be knocked down and turned into a resort. Before Anjali can do anything about this, Bootnath steps in. He's furious that they're selling this house, and he causes a huge scene, which sees the owner of the home turn and flee as if from fear, or rather, a ghost. And all the while, Banku is yelling at Bootnath to calm down. Banku's mother wants to know who he's yelling at. He tells her it's the angel, and now, Finally, Bootnath reveals himself to Anjali, and once he does, he starts to explain to both of them who he actually is and why he's so protective of this home. He tells them that he used to live here with his wife, one who he loved dearly and more than anything. Together, they had a son who they raised in the house as loving parents. Unfortunately, when their son got older, he went to America to study, and once he was gone, he never came back. This broke Bootnath's wife, who spent years waiting and hoping for her son to return to her. He never did, and she died before she was able to see her son one last time. Bootnath's son did return for the funeral, and where Bootnath wanted to be mad with his son for abandoning his mother, he couldn't help but become attached to his grandson. Despite his anger at his son, Bootnath saw a chance to start again with a family that he still very much loved. But it wasn't to be. Bootnath's son wanted to return to America with his wife.
आप समझ नहीं रहे हैं
And in doing so, he was going to sell the house and have Bootnath move back with him. Well, he refused to leave, and the two got into a huge fight. When his son did eventually leave, Bootnath chased after him, but fell down the stairs and injured his head. His son didn't come back for him, and Bootnath ended up dying on the floor, alone. Now, it's for this reason that Bootnath refuses to leave that house, and why he refuses to let anyone else live there. The home reminds him of his deceased wife, and he'll do anything to protect it. Only now, Banku's all he cares about, and he refuses to let anyone come in and sell it if that means he won't be able to see Banku again. Now later that night, Banku's father returns, and Banku and Anjali tell him everything. To the father's credit, he believes them right away, but he also sees a problem. They're gonna have to move because despite Bootnath's protests, the house is getting sold. To solve this, the father visits a priest to get some ideas as to what they can do about their ghost. The priest says that he knows all about Bootnath and why his ghost remains. Apparently, when Bootnath died, there was no post-death ceremony, one designed to help the deceased move peacefully into the afterlife. Bootnath needs to have this ceremony performed if he has any chance. But there's a catch. It has to be performed by Bootnath's son, the man trying to sell this house, the man responsible for Bootnath's tormented soul.
विजय
Banku's father pays the son a visit and tells him all about Bootnath. Of course, the son doesn't believe in ghosts and thinks that it's all just a silly superstition. Banku's father assures him that it is not, and if the son was just to come to the ceremony, it would make a huge difference. The son doesn't look like he wants to, and the father doesn't push, but he tells him that even if he doesn't believe, that he should do it for himself, to heal a rift that has existed since his father's death. The next day, the ceremony is being held for Bootnath, and wouldn't you know it, the son arrives, there to help lay his father's soul to rest. He wanders the house and looks at his old photos, being reminded of how much he loved and missed his father. And Bootnath, seeing his son repent, is able to finally cross over and enter the afterlife in peace. Only, this doesn't sit too well with Banku. He realizes now that he's never going to see his friend again. He cries, and it's Bootnath's son who consoles him. He tells Banku that he is sorry,
ठीक कहते थे आप
that they can stay in the house to honor his father, and that his father will always be watching over him. But still, Banku's upset, and he runs outside in tears and screams to the heavens that he wants Bootnath back. The next day, Banku is looking just as upset when he glances up, only to see Bootnath has returned. He tells him that it was Banku's love that brought him back, and that they can never be separated so long as they love one another. And then, in case you wanted to know what happens next, the movie ends with a "to be continued," meaning that there are sure to be more Banku and Bootnath adventures soon. Thanks for chilling with us, guys, on the film Bootnath, produced by BR Films and released in 2008, directed by Vivek Sharma. It stars Amitabi Bachchan, Aman Siddiqui, and Juhi Chawla. Butchered. If you had a ghost friend like Bootnath, what pranks would you play, and on who? Why don't you let us know with that hashtag cinema recap in the comments. Till next time.